to another episode of The Lady Killers. You might be wondering why there's only one lady killer here today, and I'm here to tell you that there's not just one lady killer here today, there's also... Oh my god, she just screamed. There's also this lady killer. Her name is Dora. She's an angel. She's my baby. But she's also Janine for the day, because Janine could not be with us. Because Janine was not on my trip to Washington, D.C., which is what we are here to talk about. Janine and I are doing a little travel series because both of us are traveling quite a bit the next 6 months. I won't spoil where those places are that we're going, but I just got back from Washington, D.C., and I can at least tell you about that trip. I got to see some pretty cool ghostly locations. Please ignore my cat in the background, or ogle her, it's up to you. But I got to see some really cool ghostly locations. I was there visiting my long-term boyfriend in Washington, D.C. Anyway, without further ado, insert cute, romantic Washington, D.C. pointless, not very spooky montage here. We got to go to a lot of really cool places. Like, I got to see like the Lincoln Memorial again. We also went to the MLK Memorial site, which I think was a really nice memorial to go see, especially like considering like our social climate. I also got to go to the Holocaust Museum in DC, which was beautiful. I've been to the one in Jerusalem, and ever since then I've always really believed that you need to visit Holocaust memorials whenever you get the chance, because we need to be reminded constantly. And we also got to go to the Kutz Bridge? Someone from DC tell me? Kutz Bridge? I don't know. It's nice. I got to see the Jefferson Memorial from very far away, which was fun. And stuff like that. So those were the non-spooky things that we did, but once I landed in DC, we got right to spooky. We went on this really cool ghost pub tour, which is actually in a lot of cities. It's Nightly Spirits. I'll link their website down below. Not sponsored, but they're really cool, and they actually offer a lot of really cool cool tours you can go on in a bunch of different cities, not just Washington, D.C. But highly recommend. They're really cool people. They give you a lot of cool facts, but they're also really fun to hang out with. Like, for instance, me and my boyfriend it was just us on the ghost tour, and then a bunch of these girls on a bachelorette party. And they just like tormented my boyfriend relentlessly, and it was beautiful. Like, they cracked a lot of jokes at his expense and called him the accountant the entire time. He's not an accountant. They just postulated that he seemed like an accountant. So they called him the accountant the entire time, which is funny. And anyway, so let's get started on some of our haunted locations. So, first off, we enter at the Willard International Hotel. The Willard was created in 1846 when Henry Willard worked to combine several hotels and office buildings into this like one hotel, which is why it's like super weirdly shaped and kind of malformed. And it was actually serving as the temporary White House during Calvin Coolidge's term right after Harding's death. So why this place is important is because it was used as a spot for a lot of presidents to hang out. So for instance, Ulysses S. Grant used to hang out at this hotel, and he'd like smoke a cigar and just chill, like trying to get away from it all. But then lobbyists, which weren't called lobbyists at that time, came and would try to pester him about like signing certain bills and like agreeing to certain things. And because they would pester him in the lobby of his hotel, of the hotel, he didn't own the hotel, but of the Willard Hotel, he said, "Get these damn lobbyists out of here," because they always pester him in the lobby, which I think is A fun fact. Not spooky, but fun. And some believe Ulysses S. Grant never left the Willard Hotel. And there are certain people that say that every once in a while you can go into the lobby and you'll see like cigar smoke, or you'll see a man smoking a cigar in the lobby, and they think it's Ulysses S. Grant, our former president and very famous Union war general during the Civil War. He'll also be drinking some brandy, apparently. Like, they'll see him with like a whole bottle of brandy just next to him, and I'm like, my kind of guy. Anyway, also, on August 15, 1903, an elevator conductor named Edward M. Fossler, age 18, was killed at 4 o'clock. When he heard a sound, he was managing the elevator, and he stepped out just to see what the sound was, and he was crushed to death between the elevator and the elevator shaft. He was driven up 10 flights, and like by the elevator, the sheer force of the elevator brought him up, and then eventually he was unwedged from the elevator when it was 10 flights up, 10 stories up, and he dropped to his death 10 stories below. The body was nearly cut in half when people found it. His head was cut and bruised, his skull fractured, and his legs were broken. The body struck the heavy iron beams at the bottom of the shaft and just literally crumbled in half. Every bone in his body was broken. Some people still believe that the spirit of Edward M. Fossler haunts that elevator and the hotel to this day. Some people hear whispers or sounds that they can't quite explain, and they attribute it to that fateful elevator conductor. Moving on! I'm going to tell you guys about the Woodrow Wilson house, which I got a really good chance to tour. And we visited his lovely house that he lived in. He left the office in 1921. Woodrow Wilson is known to be a president that led us through World War I, and also came up with the idea of the League of Nations, which eventually became the United Nations under Franklin Roosevelt. But that was Woodrow Wilson's idea. Besides that, Woodrow Wilson suffered from a terrible, terrible stroke that left half of his body paralyzed, the left side of his body paralyzed, and his left eye completely blind. He also suffered incredible personality changes. He only survived a couple years after office, and he was survived by his wife, who lived well into the 50s or 60s. I can't quite remember, but she lived to be much older, and she had taken care of him up until that point. But then when he died, apparently only about a year later, people started hearing sobs. People also started hearing the walk of a cane, and Woodrow Wilson was known for using a cane to get about because he had lost access to an entire side of his body. There's also sounds of a man sitting in a rocking chair moving. People have also said that they've seen the president moving in his rocking chair. Yeah, and that's been corroborated by decades and decades of staff, and also his late wife, who died only a few decades ago. Also, they do cool vintage parties. Like, if you like feel that, they do them on like the second Wednesday of every month, I want to say. Really cool vintage game night. You get to dress up in the 1920s attire, and real fun. Besides that, ooh, this one's my favorite, and the story comes up a little bit later when we're gonna be talking about the White House. But I'm gonna tell you guys about a Chinese restaurant that is haunted by the ghost of a Lincoln assassination conspirator, Mary Surratt. So Mary Surratt owned a boarding house, and in this boarding house, many of the people that were plotting the death of Abraham Lincoln would plot in this boarding house. She was known as a Confederate sympathizer. The way that this got around is that even John Wilkes Booth was seen entering her boarding house, and the people testified that he had been there and that she collaborated with the assassination. She was eventually executed for these crimes, for being associated with the assassination of a president. And to this day, people say that they hear incomprehensible mumbling and whispering footsteps, muffled sobs, creaking floorboards, and everyone attributes those sounds to Miss Mary Surratt. Now, if you go there, you can still see the boarding house. I'll show you guys some videos, but it's currently a Chinese restaurant called Walk and Roll. Highly recommend. Good Chinese food. There's also karaoke upstairs. So if you're looking for a good walk and roll time, come out, and you'll also see some good ghosts. Would recommend. Good fried rice. Only ghost I saw was the ghost of my hunger, because it was gone. That was a bad joke. Moving on to the Decatur house. This place is allegedly haunted by the ghost of Stephen Decatur. In 1820, Commodore James Barron challenged Commodore Decatur to a duel over comments Decatur made about Barron's conduct in the Chesapeake Leopard affair of 1807. I don't know what that means. Anyway, duels were common then. If you've ever seen the musical Alexander Hamilton, I mean, just Hamilton, but it's about Alexander Hamilton, then you'll know people had duels and they like fought and they shot each other, and they often went to like Jersey to go and like fight because duels were legal in Jersey. Anyway, so the men dueled on March 20th, and Decatur was mortally wounded in the stomach, and he died in his home on March 22nd. Only a year after his death, his ghost reportedly began appearing at the house, and he'd be standing in the second floor window looking out at H Street Northwest, or leaving the back of the house with a box of dueling pistols, like he's on his way to go and do his fatal duel. So many witnesses saw this spirit of Decatur that the windows are actually totally boarded up. So people haven't seen the spirit in quite some time because those windows are totally sealed. Some people also claim that they can hear his widow, who became totally hysterical and a little mentally unstable at the time of his death. They'll hear her weeping through the Decatur house. Last but not least, and biggest story of all, I'm going to tell you about one of the most haunted locations in all of DC, the White House. The White House is the oldest building on President's Park, and it was constructed in 1792 and only began housing presidents in 1800. The first president to live there was John Adams and his wife Abigail Adams. Abigail Adams was known for doing laundry in the East Room. And some people say that she's still doing laundry there to this day, because they'll walk into the East Room and be totally overwhelmed by the smell of soap. They'll smell damp clothing, and they'll even see shadows of a person seemingly doing laundry and hanging up laundry in the East Room. However, most famously in the White House is the ghost of Abraham Lincoln. That's right. Eleanor Roosevelt, of all people, claimed to have sensed his ghost. While she never admitted to seeing the ghost, she said that she could always feel his presence, and the Roosevelt's dog Fallout would bark for no reason at all in the direction of what Eleanor Roosevelt thought was Lincoln's ghost. The former president's footsteps are also often heard outside of the Lincoln bedroom, which is often used by presidents, especially taller ones, because it's much longer. Lillian Rogers Parks also admitted in her autobiography, My 30 Years Backstairs at the White House, that she had heard the footsteps of Abraham Lincoln, and she's a pretty reputable source regarding White House knowledge. Former First Lady Grace Coolidge said she saw the ghost of Lincoln standing at a window in the Yellow Oval Room, staring out at the Potomac. Roosevelt's personal valet even saw the ghost of Abraham Lincoln once and ran screaming all the way outside the White House, just shouting bloody murder because he had seen the ghost of a very famous president. Famously, Queen Wilhelmina of the Netherlands had heard footsteps outside of her White House bedroom when she was staying at the White House, and she answered a knock on the door. And when she answered it, she just came face to face with Abraham Lincoln, dressed in a frock coat and a top hat. She fainted, as we all would, and it's very understandable why she would indeed faint. The last sighting of Lincoln's ghost was in the early 1980s when Tony Savoy, who is the White House operations foreman, came into the White House and saw Lincoln sitting in a chair on top of some stairs. Some people also claim to see Willie Lincoln, who is Abraham Lincoln's 11-year-old son, who died of typhoid while Lincoln was in office February 20th, 1862. Lyndon B. Johnson's college-age daughter, Linda Bird Johnson, claimed to actually have conversations with Willie Lincoln and have seen him many, many times outside of Abraham Lincoln. Who else do people see in the White House? People have claimed to see Thomas Jefferson playing violin in the Yellow Oval Room. They also claim to see Andrew Jackson sleeping in his old bed. William Henry Harrison allegedly haunts the attic of the White House, and President John Tyler allegedly haunts the Blue Room. Former First Lady Frances Folsom Cleveland, who was married to President Grover Cleveland in the Blue Room in 1866, also allegedly haunts the Blue Room, the place that she was married, and was seen there after her death in 1947. The original owner of the White House, David Burns, also allegedly haunts this ground. He had owned it before the White House was purchased to be the White House. He owned the land that it was on. Some claim he can be heard in the Oval Office and the Yellow Oval Room. Apparently he once whispered to someone on the grounds that he was David Burns, and that's kind of allegedly creepy. I don't know. Anyway, a British soldier has also been seen, and most interestingly to me, the daughter of Mary Surratt, who I just told you guys about, the Lincoln conspirator, is also seen there. Her daughter's name is Anna Surratt, and when Mary Surratt was charged with the assassination of Lincoln, Anna Surratt was totally distraught, and she was really, really upset and pleaded. She came to the White House in the middle of the night, banging on the door, pleading for mercy for her mother, mercy that would never come. It is claimed by some at the White House that Anna's ghost returns to the White House every July 6th, the day that Anna pleaded for mercy for her mother, and Anna silently pleads the entire night, begging for her mother's salvation. And that's some of the ghosts that we saw in DC. I am going back there at some point, so if you would like me to talk about some other locations, these were just a quick overview of some haunted spots, but I would totally love if you guys wanted me to talk about one place in particular in more detail, or if you guys would have any suggestions of places that I should go when I'm there again. I would absolutely love that, because I just wanted to give you guys kind of a cool overview of this city, give you a sense of how haunted our nation's capital is, and also just let you guys know what I've been up to, which is just seeing my lovely, lovely boyfriend hanging out there. I didn't really just only do ghost things. We also saw like a comedy show, and that was fun. So if you guys ever visit DC, please tell us about it. Send us photos of it. We would love to see you going to these haunted spots, and also if you have any suggestions of where we should go next, other haunted stories that we should tell, stories in general that we should tell, get to it, let us know. If you're tired of seeing just my face and you miss Janine's face, she'll be in the videos next week. So you will have your reprieve of just this face, and you'll see the face that you want to see if you're tired of this face. That was a self-deprecating way to end this. Anyway, if you like these videos, please like and subscribe and press the bell notification so you get all of our notifications anytime that we post a video. Also, make sure to leave a comment, let us know that you're here, and yeah.